Today we're going to learn about part-part whole boxes and equations, specifically how part-part whole boxes relate to equations, or we can use equations with part-part whole boxes. This is an example of a part-part whole box. We see that there is one part here, another part here, and when you put the two parts together, they make up the same amount of space as the whole, which is down at the bottom. You might also see a part-part whole box flipped around the other way. So it might look like this. It might have the whole on the top and then the two parts at the bottom. Whether you see it the first way or the second way, it's still a part-part whole box and it still functions the same. One way I like to think about it is by color coding it to help me remember what the parts in the whole means. So if I make one part red, the other part yellow, I can remember that I put red and yellow together, and when I mix red and yellow, I get the color orange. So I put the whole as orange, reminding myself that they're not three unrelated numbers. I have to put red and yellow together to make the orange, just like I have to put the first part with the second part in order to be together to make the whole. You can also think of it as adding your math symbols in there with the addition symbol between the two parts, and then your equal sign up at the whole. This will help us when we do our equations in a moment. So let's take a look at an example. Here's a part-part whole box again. We'll put some numbers in there to make our parts in a minute, but remember that the two parts have to go together to equal or be the same as the whole. So here's our first example. We have 8 and 2 as our parts. If I think about this in relation to addition, I know that I have to add 8 plus 2, or put the two numbers together in order to figure out what my whole is, what that would be on the other side of the equation. So let's take a look at this and make an equation from it. First, I have one part, which is my 8. My second part is my 2. So I can use counters to help myself. I have 8 red counters over here to represent one part, and I have 2 yellow counters to represent the other part. If I put those in the equation down at the bottom, I have to put them together to make the orange whole at the top. So 8, the red part, plus 2, the yellow part, when I put them together, they have to be the same as what the whole is, which is 10. So 8 plus 2 is 10. One part is 8, the other part is 2. When I put the two parts together, they are 10. Let's take a look at another example. This time I've got one part that's 5, the next part is 3. Remember, I can think of it as having the addition symbol in between those two parts because I need to add them together to equal the whole. We'll put this in an equation to help ourselves. We've got 5 as one part, 3 as the other part. Let's write it in our equation. 5 plus 3. I've got that addition symbol in between, which helps me make it on my equation down below. When I put the two together, I can make my whole. So 5 and 3 more. 5, 6, 7, 8 is 8. And so that is my whole up at the top. Let's look at one more example because sometimes in your part-part whole box, you're not going to have two parts. You might have your whole in one part. And so you can use the part-part whole box or an equation to help you figure this out. By remembering that the two parts go together to make the whole. So I know that in the end, the two parts have to equal 10. In this case, I already have 6, so I need to figure out how many more I need to put over here to have it equal or the same as 10. If I bring it back to my equation, I know that that would be 6 plus blank equals 10. I leave this part blank in my equation because my other part is missing over here. I can use counters to help myself. If I have 6 as one part, I need to figure out how many more to put in my other part to equal 10. So I would count on 7, 8, 9, 10. The yellow chips represent the other part. I see that I added on 4 yellow counters, so I know that my other part, which is in the yellow, is 4. So now I know 6 plus 4 is the same as 10. You won't be doing that today, but that's just an example of something that you can do with part whole boxes, and we'll get more into detail of that later. Let's take a look at your seat work to show your understanding of today's goal. Your recording sheet looks like this today. You'll see that there are part whole boxes and then spaces for the equations below. What you'll do is you'll roll 2 dice, and then you will use those as your parts in your part whole box and figure out what the whole is. You also need to write the equation down below. Let's take a look at your seat work a little bit closer today. Here's an example. You're going to roll 2 dice. So let's say that you roll a 3 and a 6 on your first roll. So I'm going to use the 2 dice as my parts in my part whole box. So I'll record those in the part whole box. I have a 3 and I have a 6. Next, I need to put them within the equation. So remember, I can think about that addition symbol in between those 2 parts and transfer that right to my equation. So my equation is 3 plus 6. I'm finding what that equals, or what's the same as 3 plus 6 when I put them together. So if I put 3 and 6 together, I can start with 6 and count on 6, 7, 8, 9. So now I know that I have 9 altogether, which is also my whole. Let's do one more example so you're really clear on what the expectation is today. Let's say you roll the dice again. This time you get a 5 and a 2. Again, I'm going to use the 2 dice as my parts. So I'm going to put a 5 and a 2 for my parts. I can again think about that addition symbol in between to help myself with the equation. So I know that it's going to be 5 plus 2. Now I need to put those 2 parts together to find my whole, or to find what goes on the other side of the equal sign. So 5, counting on 6, 7. I know that 5 plus 2 is the same as 7. So that would be my whole. Your job is to complete all of those on the page, so taking turns rolling the dice, finding different equations to help you with your part whole box today. If we look at your jobs, you can see that you have your seat work that you will turn into the turn-in bin when you are finished. Your must-do today is to take a picture of one problem. So you'd look at one part whole box with the equation, your choice of which one you want to do. You are going to explain your strategy and how you solved the part whole box. So you might say, I rolled a 5 and a 2. So 5 plus 2 equals 7. I know this because I counted on. That would be an example of what you might use. You're going to upload that into the blue math folder. When you're finished, go into choosing whether you want to do fact fluency on MobyMax, or you can do extra math. And then you have your choice of playing a partner game with a friend or using one of the math apps and the games that we have. Remember, you can always watch the video again if you're not sure on what to do or how this strategy works. That's okay to watch it as many times as you need.